This week, Blue Apron. It's been in the headlines, but why? Well, I'll tell you why. What has happened is the company has basically been sold in a couple parts, and Blue Apron, as it was originally conceived, the brand is still there, but it has been sold. The journey is basically over. It's in the hands of other companies. So let's talk about it. Blue Apron. The journey started where it began. It began in New York City with these three fellas. From left to right, Elia Pappas, Matt Salzberg in the center, who was the CEO about the time it went public, and Matt Wadiak. August of 2012 in New York, they got together and said, you know what? What if we could send boxes of food to people with pre-measured spices and stuff, so all they have to do is open it and follow an easy-to-follow recipe card, and then that way they don't have to shop at the store and they can eat a balanced meal. Okay, now that's a very interesting idea that solves a need, but is it scalable? Does it make long-term customers who remain dedicated? Can it make long-term profitability? Don't know. Well, what we're about to find out is it didn't. Not to be a spoiler alert, but with what happened this week in the media and the headlines, you know what happened. So let's dive into it. They were venture funded. And venture funded, that means they went out and got money a little at a time. Series A, February 2013, was $3 million. Cumulative was $4 million because they had about $900,000 of their own that was in there. Then they went out, did a Series B, August of 13. Remember, it was founded in 2012, so they were quickly out raising money. 5 more for a total of 9. Then they did a Series C, just a few months later, about 6-7 months later, from August, $50 million. And now they've raised $60 million, so now they've really raised money now, April of 14. Then they go out, ready for this, Series D, June of 15. So that is 1 year and 2 months later, 135 million raised, 184 million total. And ladies and gentlemen, they joined the Unicorn Club, a $2 billion valuation along with their Series D, 2,500 employees, most of them working in distribution centers, assembling the boxes of food and shipping them out, and all of that in 36 months. So 0 to a $2 billion valuation in 36 months. Well, wow, this is off to the races. But guess what? All these people that put in that $184 million and want to get their money back happens one of two ways. They're bought by a big company or we go public. So onward. More headlines, but suddenly not all the headlines are good. First of all, they go out, they spend a lot of that money to put a fulfillment center in New Jersey. Okay, so that's how you're getting it done for distributing. And then they do what I call moving the focus, broadening the focus. They launch Blue Apron wine. Well, that's a little bit different because now you need an adult signature to sign for it. And the food, can be left on the porch with proper little refrigerator packs that are inside it. But nonetheless, they broaden it up a little bit. Then in 2016, oh my gosh, big article in BuzzFeed, later picked up by the rest of the media. They had health and safety issues reported at distribution center. They're handling food, they're shipping food. It's got to be good when it gets to you and me. And apparently they had some things. They said, hey, we got to tighten it up a little bit. It's just because we're growing. They use growth as an excuse. Then June of 2017, they have the IPO. $300 million IPO. So it goes out priced at about $10 a share. And whoops, Brad Dickerson replaces Salzberg as CEO. Why am I mentioning that? You're about to find out. Then they go out for the IPO. And unlike IPOs where you get this pop of 20-25% a day, they were basically flat in the first day of trading. And that, I clipped that right off of, I believe, a CNBC. That's the actual headline going back June 29, 2017, about 6 years ago. Now, suddenly there's smoke from the kitchen. You like how I did that? 2018, in June of 18, a year after going public, they have lost 80% of their IPO value. And in Q2, they said, because remember, once you're public, you have a thing called earnings report, and you have to discuss and disclose material events. And they said, our customers are down 24% quarter over quarter, orders down 23%. Uh-oh. In 2019, they announced Linda Kozlowski will replace Dickerson as CEO. Now they're on their third CEO since going public. They went public with this guy, a year later went to that guy, and now they go to this girl. I say guys and girls, I do not know how they identify, but I'm just assuming such by their names and the pictures provided at these times. Then 2020-22, revenue is bouncing around, but it's way down. I'm about to show you a chart. And the losses continue unabated. They never really became profitable and stayed profitable. Let's take a look. Not growing, not scaling. So here's 2015. Remember, they were raising all that money and they would go public in 2017. So go right here. Now, pretend that Biz Doc is covering up everything else here, okay? This was the decisions people were making when it went public. Oh my goodness, look at this. And look, they've just crossed over into profitable territory. Wait, there were some losses. Growing revenue with losses. Guess what? After the IPO, look where the revenue line is and the losses continued. So everybody's looking at this saying, wait a minute. Revenue can go down as long as you make a profit and you show that more EBITDA and more profit, but you don't have growth, you don't have scaling, and you're just doing this. And look at this. Total operating losses since 2015, 680 million bones. Not good. So there's the problem. You know, you never really had a long-term sustainable. Guess what they found out along this time? Right about here, they disclosed that a lot of people were one and done, and they would use it on a highly discounted coupon. So you would get a big discount. Hey, 30% off your first order on Blue Apron. People would order one or two and stop, which means that they never got to the point of being a profitable customer because they lost money on the first box they sent them because they sent it with a coupon to get them to try it. Then they get maybe a second box and then it's over. So unfortunately, they never got to sustained, repetitive customers that would generate profits. And then you saw they are disclosed at quarter over quarter in 2018, right about here, they had announced, yeah, the number of customer orders is down 23% quarter over quarter. Ouch. So in other words, this suddenly makes sense. From the IPO all the way down here to today, where it's $12 a share. Now remember I told you the IPO was $10 a share. They did a 1-for-12 reverse stock split, which means 12 to 1 on this, divide that by 12, equals 1. The stock was barely $1, and they did a 12 to 1 stock split. Why? I've mentioned it in a couple of things that I covered about IPOs not too long ago, where I said that if your stock gets down and trades under $1 for too long, the NASDAQ or the NYSE, the major stock markets in the United States, will delist you. They'll say, you can't be public anymore. You're not showing enough sustained value, and your stock is too low to be traded. Guess what? It was so low that they had to do a 12 to 1 split to get it back to 12. But still, that represents 99% loss in terminal value since the beginning. So now what? Well, I'll show you. Here's what happens. That is a recipe for a garage sale. See what I did there? I'm really having fun with these headlines on this one. June. They sold in June of this year, 2023, sold their infrastructure to Fresh Realm, and they received $25 million and eliminated all debt. In other words, Fresh Realm paid the debt and took the distribution centers, all of the infrastructure, and the software. Incredible. So that's that. What do they have left? Customer list, recipes, other intellectual property. Then they do the 12 to 1 reverse stock split to avoid delisting. By the way, this was like 2 days apart, according to the information I found. Then they just sold now, as we're sitting here in late September, early October, they sold for $103 million to Wonder Group, which is a company founded by an entrepreneur, Mark Lohr, that says, we're going to redefining at-home dining and food delivery. Wait a minute. So in other words, this Mark Lohr guy is basically buying the customer list, other things go with it, what's left of the company for $103 million, as he's basically trying to do the same thing. Maybe he'll be more successful. There's an old joke in venture capital that said, did you know the first guy that invented a golf course went broke? Get the joke? There's golf courses everywhere and they're profitable, generally speaking. But the second guy is the guy that made it. Maybe this is the guy that makes it. But now Fresh Realm and Wonder own what's left of Blue Apron. You'll see the Blue Apron logo and brand still out there, but make no mistake, Wonder owns this part of it and Fresh Realm owns that part of it, and that's how they paid the debt, got out of town. So what are the lessons for you and me? This is a pretty sad story. This story had promised $2 billion unicorn status and then all the way down to a garage sale. Well, let's go take a look. The first thing is, if growth stats are vanity stats, then they're useless stats. So in other words, if the growth you're talking about is eyeballs or first-time deliveries or total number of customers, and by the way, once upon a time, Blue Apron was talking about that. But really what was going to make them profitable is profit per individual delivery and customers that were buying almost like subscription every month or with regularity. That way you've got recurring customer activity that we can count and profit per order for customer. Hey, that's a growing, scaling, profitable business. But if your growth stats are vanity stats, they're useless. Second, venture valuations are opinions that must be proven. You may make it to a $2 billion valuation. That is an opinion of the last people that invested money in you who felt that that valuation along with their money gave them an acceptable percentage of your company. So if they said you were worth $1.9 billion, they put in $100 million. That means your value is now $2 billion, 1.9 plus the 100 you now have in your hand is 2. That would give them little more than 5% of the company. There you have it. But the value must be proven over time. By what? The 5-step fundamentals that always win. First, is it a growing business? These guys were growing up to a point and then it crashed. You see that? Second, do you have a proven product or service? They had a product or service, but it wasn't proven with the customer. Proven product is recurring. You buy Coke today, you buy a Coke on the weekend, you buy Coke next week at Costco. You're a returning Coca-Cola customer. Proven product and recurring customer. Then scaling gross margin and EBITDA. Do you make a profit on every one you sell? That's key. Now you may have a situation like, remember the old mobile phones? You could get a mobile phone for 99 bucks, but you're on a 2-year contract. So you're basically leasing it. Even though technically on day one they gave you the phone at a loss, but then you lease paid for it over time. So scaling gross margin and EBITDA, even if you have economics that maybe are buy now and pay it later over time, that ultimately every customer or every transaction is profitable in its own right, leading to EBITDA for the company. Next, are you in a market with room to grow? In other words, if your business is growing, but you look forward in your typewriters, but you look forward and soon the typewriter will be gone, people just have printers in their laptops, you're no longer in a market with room to grow. So you would be yes, yes, no, and by the way, your proven product is probably going to go away. You see how these 4 things interconnect? And there's a 5th one, you. Are you led by a great leader and a capable team? If those 5-step fundamentals are in place, usually you have companies that don't end up with that stock chart look like that I just showed you a couple minutes ago. So that's the message for us, and that's the interesting for us. I'm kind of sad to see something like Blue Apron go away. I think it was convenient. I think it was interesting. I tried it once. But you look at everything that was there, they obviously couldn't make it go long term. And that, my friend, is the story of Blue Apron, which is now owned by Fresh Realm and Wonder. If you like that case study, please check out these others that they just put on the screen for you. Click on them from the Biz Doc archive. You might like them. They may be interesting, so we learn more things together.